Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I'm here to talk about the season 1 finale of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. It was called Whose Show Is This? And it had a crazy, cool, excellent opening sequence, which was like a complete redo of the opening sequence from the original Hulk show from the 70s, the late 70s or the early 80s, which of course starred Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby with period clothing and everything. It was very, very cool. And if you can see the background behind me, you can see the mock-up they did of the title card of the original show that used to say, well, that said the Incredible Hulk originally, which now says the Savage She-Hulk. And it's a picture of Jen's face, and then split down the middle. And then on the other half, She-Hulk's face, which is the same thing that they did with, Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno for the original show. But the weird thing is that She-Hulk in this opening sequence, like mock-up or parody, is not the CGI She-Hulk, of Tatiana Maslany that we're used to seeing. It's like a completely different person. And I think they did that because the original show was not CGI, of course. They used Lou Ferrigno. So in this case, they just took a real woman, a bulky, big woman, and put the makeup on her or whatever, and had her be She-Hulk for this old-timey opening sequence. So it was very funny. But anyway, once we get past that, we see that Jen is in prison. She was arrested at the end of the last episode. She has to wear an inhibitor if she wants to be released without charges, which of course she agrees to do, but it means that she loses her job because she can't be She-Hulk at work if she can't be She-Hulk at all. And so she moves back in with her folks, which is weird because the last time she lost her job, she didn't do that immediately. So I don't know why she did that. But anyway, that's what she does. And she and Nikki start trying to figure out who made the video that played during the gala, who, made all that nasty stuff about her up. And Jen later confesses in a fourth wall break that even though she has said multiple times that she just wanted her normal life and didn't really want to be She-Hulk, she says it feels like a violation that she can't be She-Hulk anymore. She reaches out to Bruce, but he's MIA, so she ends up going to see Blonsky at his retreat because she figures she could use the relaxation and he kind of knows what she's going through, and maybe it'd be good for her to see him. Meanwhile, Nikki baits Hulk King into revealing the location of some event he's having by putting up a post of a goofy video of Jen in college that Jen's mother shared to Nikki as a goof earlier. She then gets with Pug and sends him in to infiltrate the event, at which he discovers that Todd is there. And it turns out that the event is taking place in a lodge right on Blonsky's property, which I guess he rents out or allows different groups to use, and that he is in fact the guest speaker at the event, but only in the form of Abomination. Jen ends up crashing the event while searching for Blonsky on the property because she feels like, as I said, he's the only one who can really understand her situation, and of course discovers that Intelligentsia is meeting there. Todd confesses that he was behind everything and proceeds to inject himself with her blood and transform into something resembling a Hulk right in front of her. Nikki comes in trying to get Pug out of there and discovers that Jen's there, and she urges Jen and Pug to go with her and get out of there, just as Titania shows up and breaks through a wall, which is followed by the Hulk showing up by dropping through the ceiling. Hulk sees Abomination holding Jen, which was really only because he wanted to get Jen out of the way of harm, but Hulk thinks something else is happening, so he attacks Abomination. Her confusion at seeing all of this, because in her estimation, none of it makes any sense. And so then the show does a thing where it makes it look like the viewer bailed on the episode by clicking back to the Disney menu, at which point She-Hulk breaks through the menu and leaves her own show to go into that Marvel documentary show about Marvel shows and Marvel movies so that she can confront the writers. When that doesn't really go her way, she goes to visit Kevin, who we're supposed to assume is Kevin Feige or Feige, which results in security being called on her, and of course she kicks all their asses. When she gets to Kevin, she discovers that Kevin is not Kevin Feige or even a person, but an AI called Knowledge Enhanced Visual Interconnectivity Nexus, and that it is the thing that's been coming up with all the Marvel plot lines for all the shows and movies all this time. So of course she has all kinds of questions for the Kevin thing, and it says it'll answer her questions, but only if she only if she transforms back into Jen because the visual effects are expensive. He tells her that he's the one that makes all the decisions and that he produces near perfect products, but admits that some are better than others and that he leaves the debate as to why that is to the internet, which is hilarious. After poking fun at various things about the MCU, Jen gets Kevin to rearrange the ending completely, working in another appearance by Daredevil, as well as a return trip to prison for Blonsky. And at a subsequent backyard picnic type thing at her folks' place, at which Matt is in attendance, Hulk shows up and introduces everyone to his son, Scar, which I guess is from the World War Hulk storyline or something, and that might be getting covered by the MCU now, so that's a thing. I don't know. We then see Jen heading back to her job as She-Hulk, as a reporter gives a voiceover saying that all the charges against her were dropped, at which point the credits roll, but in a mid-credit scene, we see Wong breaking Blonsky out of prison via a wizard hole portal to go live at Kamertage. And that's where the episode ended, and the season along with it. I hate to say it because I like this season, I like this show, but this ending was kind of bad. I mean, I thought it was funny, and I think that it works for this particular show. But in terms of how you're supposed to end a season of a show, generally, after cultivating a season long, villain arc, it just rendered the whole thing as silliness, begging the question why they did it at all, because shows can exist as purely episodic without any need for an overarching story. But they did one, and then they sort of Deus ex machina, ended it in a really zany way for like no apparent reason. So was that for comedic value? Like what? I don't understand why they did that. I'd hate to think that they were writing the season and could not come up with anything to tie up all the stories and just said, "Hey, I know, let's do a thing where we goof on that." I would hate to think that that's what they did. And because I really think it would have been better if they just left the cliffhanger on those things with maybe one or two more twists or turns to the story before they ended it. And but I guess if they're now not going to have a season two, they don't have any hanging plots. So I don't know. Maybe that's another factor here. Maybe they saw the writing on the wall. I don't know. So I'm disappointed with this ending, and I'm also disappointed that they never had Jen do any real self-reflection to speak of, and therefore not a whole lot of development as a character. I think they spent a good amount of time showing us who she is and who she's been, but they didn't really take her anywhere, beyond scratching the surface, and that's kind of disappointing. I was hoping they were going to develop her a little more, not only because I find flawed heroes who discover things about themselves over the course of their journey to be interesting, but because now that whole thing where she thinks she's had to control her anger infinitely more than Bruce is left hanging, and we never get to see whether or not things about her life indicate that, yeah, that's kind of true, or where she realizes that it was kind of an unfair thing to say. And I think the writers should have done one of those two things by the end of the season. And the fact that they didn't isn't great. And I'm calling them out because I said that I would when I pushed back against all the people who gave the show shit for that one particular moment. I think they needed to do more to flesh that out, to show where it was true or show her come to the realization that maybe she exaggerated. But they didn't do either of those things. I mean, they showed that she's, she gets that she deals with jerky people, but like having to control her anger infinitely more than the Hulk. Sure, she could have had a life like that where that was true, but they didn't show us that. And now that the season's over, I have to call them on it. Anyway, as much as that's true, now that the season's over, I also want to say that I think they did balance out some of the man hating stuff, if not all of it, with other moments that show, the guys can be cool. Pug is a good guy. Matt's a good guy. Blonsky's a good guy, even though he violated his parole, but he didn't hurt anybody. And they also had moments that showed that women can be trashy as well and not great people, which they did in the wedding episode. So, this show is not anything resembling the woke garbage that its critics said it was. Narratively, it had some problems we now know at the end, but all the way along, I think the narrative was great, and none of the stuff about it that the critics said made it woke garbage make it woke garbage because they balanced most of it out. So, on balance, I like this show. I like this season. I enjoyed it all the way through. I'm just dissatisfied with the ending. So, we'll have to see if it gets a second season, which I, of course, will watch and be here to review. For now, I'm going to get out of here. Before I do, I want to remind everybody that I have a Teespring store now. You can get t-shirts there with the channel logo and other designs on it. And anything you get there really helps the channel. The link is in the description. Also, I wanted to suggest that everyone please give the video a like. It really helps. And, leave a comment because I like to read the comments. I like interacting with everyone. And it's just a fun thing. You can tell me what you think of the show. You can tell me what you think of what I think of the show. It's an open door there. So yeah, do all that stuff. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.